One more tune-up game for the Indiana Hoosiers before they play UConn.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? I'm your man, Jacob Goins, and welcome into the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. One more chance, one more tune-up game for the Indiana Hoosiers before they play the UConn Huskies, as Indiana hosting Wright State at Assembly Hall on Thursday. And lots to correct, right? Lots to work on, and lots to just get better at. I mean, there's so many different facets of the game that Indiana is struggling with so far. We're going to get into all of that here on the show today. Do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Indiana hosting Wright State tonight as the Raiders looking for their first win on the season. Indiana trying to avoid their first loss on the season. And I think it's important that we got to go look at this Wright State team and see what's going on and see what's going to be coming to Bloomington. Their first game against Colorado State, they gave up 105 points. And that's a okay Colorado State team. I mean, they're not anything spectacular. They're good. I don't think they're 105 points good, but that's what happened against Wright State in their first game. Their second game was much closer, and they played Toledo, and they lost 78-77. And fun fact about this Wright State team, in both of their games this season so far, they've scored exactly 77 points. So what can Indiana do? And how is Indiana going to stop them? And what's Indiana's game plan against this Wright State team? Looking at some of their players, you have one guy who is really, really good. His name is Trey Calvin. He is their guard. He's scoring in 2 games. I know it's only 2 games, but he is scoring 27 points a game. He is their go-to. He runs their offense. He will have the ball in his hands most of the time early in the shot clock. He's going to have the ball in his hands late in the shot clock. And when they need a bucket, he is going to be the one. Trey Calvin will be the guy that gets everything done for this Wright State team. He's averaging 27 points this season, 3 assists, 2 steals. He's doing it all. The only thing he doesn't lead the team in is rebounds and blocks, and that goes to Brandon Noel, the forward, who has 6 rebounds and has 2.5 blocks this season, averaging so far. Calvin's shooting from the floor is 54%. Pretty solid. I know he's a guard, but that's pretty solid. He's 100% from the free throw line and 50% from downtown. So if there's anybody that the Hoosiers cannot lose track of in this game tonight, it is Trey Calvin, right? That's who the Hoosiers have to find him. Okay. They have to find him, because in their first game for Wright State against Colorado State, he went off for 33 points, okay? 33 points, shot 57% from the three-point line, 100% from the free throw line, and 57% from the floor. Against Toledo, he had 22 points, which is, I mean, you're pushing a third, a fourth of what they had in the entire game, okay? Again, 40% from 3, 100% from the line, and 50% from the floor in 35 minutes played. He is their offense, okay? And does he shoot a lot of threes? No, but he makes them when he does. And Indiana is going to have to keep somebody on him constantly. The question becomes for the Hoosiers, who is that? Who do you put on him? I think the answer is simple. I think you put Xavier Johnson on him and let him, let him do his thing, right? Let Xavier Johnson be on their best player, because as of right now, as a guard, Xavier Johnson is your best player for Indiana. So I think you pair them up, you try to cancel them out, and Indiana should have the talent to carry them on and win this basketball game. But this is not a game about Wright State. I'm not concerned with them. I'm not worried about them coming to Assembly Hall and upsetting Indiana. If they play well, Indiana should be fine. But it's time to work on some things. This is what I wanted from the last game against Army, right? We talked about that on this show, how I wanted that to be a get right game, right? Let's work on some things against Army and get better as a team and as a program. That didn't happen in that game, and you were in a dogfight for 40 minutes. This is a chance to do that. For a team that gave up 105 points, Indiana should be licking their chops offensively. Maybe this is the game that it all kind of clicks and they get it going for the first time this season. I don't know. I think it's possible. I think it's probably your best chance so far before you play UConn coming up this weekend. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I think if you can stop Calvin, right, equalize him, balance him out with either Xavier Johnson or maybe even a bigger guard with Trey Galloway possibly. I think if you do that, he will be fine. And I don't think anybody else in this Wright State team can beat you. But they will shoot. And if Indiana can't figure out their three-point defense and their three-point rotation, which has been horrible so far this year, if they can't figure that out, then the Hoosiers might be in trouble. And they may play another 40-minute game. I don't know. They very well might. This team likes to pass the ball. They can pass it around, and that's how they set up their offense. And look, again, they're going to look for Calvin. Every time down the floor, that's what they're going to do. And if Indiana can't find him, if Indiana can't guard him one-on-one, they're going to be in trouble. Does Wright State have anything on their defense? I don't really think so. Nobody that should be able to stop what Indiana wants to do offensively. Now, the big question is, what does Indiana want to do offensively? We saw it in the last game where they fed Khalil Ware, and then they stopped. You saw Xavier Johnson get his points, but it was kind of hit or miss. And so does anybody on Wright State have what it takes to stop a guy like Khalil Ware or a Mackenzie Mgbako if he gets going off? The only one is Brandon Noel. That's the only one, the forward, who plays 38 minutes a game. He plays more than anybody else. Indiana should not have a problem with Wright State. This should not be an issue. But you can't sit here and tell me you're not just a little bit nervous, right? Just a little bit worried. Because if this game goes like the first two, you never know. I don't think Wright State's all that good. They haven't won a game. They're 0-2 so far. But you are at home on a Thursday night. But the problem is Indiana going to look ahead? That's the big issue. If you handle your business offensively and defensively, get out in transition, force some turnovers, and have some fun in this game, Indiana will be fine. But here's my concern. Do they look ahead to what comes up this weekend? We'll discuss that in just a minute. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to be the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've used LinkedIn for personal experiences. My company uses it to find new people and hire a lot of salespeople there. It really is a fantastic service. It's super easy. It takes just a few taps, type in your information, and it sends it out to the world. It's super easy to find for them and super easy to use for you. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Adding the right team member is extremely important, especially for those of you in a small business where certain employees and minimal employees have maximum responsibilities. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Athletic Brewing. Athletic Brewing is changing the non-alcoholic beer game. And with Athletic Brewing, it's time for our game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Khalil Ware, who dominated against Army and I think should dominate against Wright State coming up tonight, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Khalil Ware, he dominated, right? Indiana was feeding him, giving him the ball. He was having his way. I know they went away from it, but he was doing his thing, and he was changing the game a little bit for Indiana, and that's what Athletic Brewing is doing for the non-alcoholic beer game. They have completely changed it. They're making non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, that are full of flavor and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. And they brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, Goldens, sours, and more. And no hangovers ever. That's the best part. Have a couple of drinks, enjoy yourself, and you're not going to feel bad the next day. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Well, we know Indiana playing Wright State tonight, but is this an opportunity, or is this a bad opportunity, you should say, or a possibility maybe, that Indiana is looking ahead to the weekend? I hope not, man. I hope not. But I think there's a possibility here where Indiana hasn't played well in your first two games. You're trying to get right. You've got a team that doesn't have a win on the schedule yet. You're at home on a Thursday, right? Nothing crazy. Shouldn't stress about it. You're going to be big-time favorites. Is there a chance that this team overlooks Wright State and has a look-ahead moment for the 5th-ranked UConn Huskies this weekend? I think it's very possible. I do. I think it's possible, and that's not just for Indiana. I think that's for any college basketball program that plays big games like this. Indiana trying to get right and trying to get things where they need to be this early in the season is tough. It is. It's really, really tough. And as a player, these guys look at the schedule, right? They know what's coming up, and they know what's happening around them and what's happening around college basketball. And they know that what they're going to be doing this weekend when they take on UConn is going to be on ESPN in the Empire Classic. It's one of the biggest games in the first couple of weeks. It's easy to look at that game and be excited about it and want to use that game to prove everybody wrong, right? To shut them up and to show that we are a good basketball team. And that's fine. I hope they do. But you can't be looking ahead to that game yet. You have Wright State you have to beat, because the first two games that you were favored by and were supposed to win by 20 plus, you didn't. And you almost lost both of them. So for Indiana, it is very, very important that you focus on each individual game and not start looking ahead on the schedule. Because if the Hoosiers start doing that, they could be in some serious trouble because of UConn and Maryland and Michigan and Kansas and Auburn and all the other teams, right? It's easy to look ahead at a big game and be excited about it and not really worry about the smaller Wright State coming in. But they can play, man. They can play. I know they don't have a win, but Wright State can play. That's historically a good basketball program. Indiana is not good enough to look ahead yet. They're just not. They're not good enough. They're not playing good enough. And to be honest, I just don't think they're mature enough as a team yet to be able to look ahead and just wave off a team like Wright State. I'm not saying it's going to happen, because I think Mike Woodson's a really good head coach, and I would hope that he wouldn't allow that to happen for this team. But you never know. This is a classic letdown, look ahead possibility for a team like Wright State when they come in. They are one of those scrappy teams and programs where if you let them hang around, just like we saw with Army, if you let them hang around, they will have chances to win and their confidence will build throughout the game. They're on the road in Assembly Hall, packed crowd, right? Haven't won a game. This is their opportunity. This is their big game to prove everybody wrong and to go in and get the big upset. And I promise they have watched the film on the first two games for the Hoosiers, and they feel, Wright State feels they can win this basketball game. They should not feel that way. Indiana should never be in the same conversation of a Wright State when it comes to quality of a team. I'm sorry. They just shouldn't. Indiana is historically a top 5 program in college basketball. But this game, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it absolutely could be that. And it could be a huge upset. And then the game against UConn, we're all going to be upset and mad because the Hoosiers lost to Wright State. And then our confidence level will be low, and probably theirs too, and that game could get out of hand early. So I say all of that. To say this. Focus on Wright State. Focus on Indiana. Focus on getting better and working on your ball movement offensively and getting different players active and involved in the game plan, right? Focus on getting Mackenzie and Mgbako comfortable in the college game because they're going to have their work cut out for them when they play UConn, folks. Let's just be honest, right? Focus on your defensive rotations. Focus on some leadership and some organization. All of those things are what you're supposed to do in this game against Wright State or against any team in this situation, right? When you're playing a much smaller school that you're a heavy favorite on at home in the middle of the week before a massive game comes up this weekend. Don't let it happen. Don't be fooled. Don't look ahead. Don't overlook this team. I think if Indiana can do that, I look for this to be the best game they've played this year. You're at home. Give the fans a little juice before, and give yourself a little juice and boost and confidence before you play UConn, which is a huge game this weekend. But I look for Indiana to have a good game tonight against Wright State and not get caught looking ahead to the Huskies this weekend. Coming up, we'll talk about a 4-star point guard that Indiana basketball offered in the 2025 class. Talk about where he's from, who he's connected with, and what he could look like if he plays at Indiana. We'll talk about that in just a second. Want to remind you that with college football season still going on, Locked On is still continuing our coverage with the Locked On College Football Kickoff Live each Friday. Locked On will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel, including Locked On Hoosiers. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. And today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Look, folks, Prize Picks, it's so much fun. It really is. If you don't know what it is, Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat predictions and watch the winnings roll in. Basketball season's here. You can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. You can cross over football and hockey and basketball and gaming. I mean, there's all sorts of categories on there. You could go with LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. I mean, it's unreal. Nobody's doing it like they are. And my favorite part that I shout out every time, the reboot policy. keeps your entries in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games this season, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is automatically rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. I use PrizePicks legitimately every day. I use it every day. It's my favorite app. I'm on there constantly looking. They're always updating different props and different players in different games. It's an absolute blast. You got to go and check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Well, Indiana basketball offered a 4-star point guard in the 2025 class. Chance Mallory is his name. He is 5'10" and shared on his social media that he was offered by Indiana. This was a couple of days ago, and he's according to most of the recruiting sites, he's a 4-star prospect. The number 11 point guard in the class and number 73 overall. So he's a top 100 player and borderline top 10 in his position at the point guard spot. I know a lot of you will see and hear the 5'10", right? And think, okay, that's kind of short for a point guard. And I kind of agree in the college game. We've seen tons of really good point guards be really good in college, but kind of struggle to get to the next level, right? But we've seen a lot of those guards be really effective in college. And so I'm not worried about that. And it doesn't seem like others are either. Indiana, of course, not too worried about it. And if you go watch the film, man, he makes up for it. He is shifty. He's fast. He's quick. It has really good court vision and is playing with some of the highest level of basketball in AAU, high school, all of that. He was playing for Team Thrill on the Under Armour circuit. If that rings a bell for any of you Indiana fans, he played with 2024 Indiana guys that Indiana was targeting, Derek Queen and Daquan Davis, right? Those names are familiar. And Mallory was playing with those guys. So he's playing with some big time guys. And again, when you watch the film, there's not a whole lot of struggling or limitations because he's only 5'10". And look, I'm 5'10". And there are a lot of people when I go and play basketball that are a lot taller than me, but this guy's a lot better than me as well. He's a sophomore at St. Anne's Belfield. He averaged 17.5 points, 5 assists, almost 4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. So the guy does it all. Shot 43% from the field, 36% from 3. I'd like to see the field, like the shooting numbers go up on that. As a guard, 43% is not all that great. I'm just going to be honest with you. 36% from deep is good, though. 51% overall when he was playing with Team Thrill over the summer and back in the spring, and 38% from 3. So that was a shorter time frame and less games to go off of, but he did improve from his high school sophomore season to when he was playing on the Under Armour circuit. So if he could keep that up, 50% from the floor and 38% from 3, I'll take it all day, especially from your point guard spot. Here's a great quote from Adam Finkelstein from 247. He said, quote, "Whatever he may lack in size, he more than compensates with his poise, skill, and pure shot making. He rains threes with a quick and effortless stroke, all while reliably running the show from the point guard position." And that's what you want to see, right? Indiana, we've seen some guards come through here. I think we still have a great one with Xavier Johnson. But the point guard spot is so important, and especially for me, because I want my guards to make their shots, but run the offense and orchestrate it, right? You are the guy on the offense. You're the one that is running everything, running the show, and making it flow. You start an offensive possession with the pass that you make. You have to be able to see what's going on. It's like the quarterback in football, right? you have to be able to read what's going on and make the right decision, make the right call, and make the right pass to get everything generated. You got to get open, help guys get open. And I think he can. I really, really do. When you watch his film again, Chance Mallory is a really, really good guard. And his shooting stroke it's pure, it's quick, which is why I could see his shooting percentage kind of fluctuate sometimes. With that quick release, it's easy to just fire him off, right? It's easy just to let him go and see what happens. And so I don't want to say a streaky shooter, but more consistency would be nice if he decides to choose Indiana. Big schools, especially out of the Big East, that have offered him so far, including Villanova, Seton Hall, West Virginia, VCU, Butler, Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Maryland. So you've got currently you have another Big 10 school in there. You have a Big 12 school in there. You've got a bunch of Big East schools in there. And I love the Big East Conference in basketball. So this guy is legit. He knows what's up. And Indiana knows what they're doing too. And so you would love to get possibly your point guard of the future or one of your guards of the future for 2025. And I know that seems like a long way away, but it's really not. We're in November of 23. Isn't that crazy? Go watch his film. Again, Chance Mallory, the 4-star point guard. Could he become a 5-star by the time he gets to decision day? Possibly. I mean, he could always rise. But I think there's some really good players in front of him. And I don't know how far he'll rise in his position rankings, but I mean, the rankings are whatever, right? I'm looking at the guy for how he plays and how it fits Mike Woodson's system at Indiana. And we know you have to have a good, steady, consistent point guard for this team to work, for the offense to work. And could Mallory be it? Sure, he absolutely could. And it'd be nice for Indiana to get a shooter, would it not? It'd be nice for them to get a shooter at the guard spot. A 3-point shooter at the guard spot would be huge. So go check out his stuff, man. He is I think an underrated guard in 2025, and he received an offer from Indiana earlier this week. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen each and every day. Tomorrow, we'll be previewing Indiana and UConn, a huge game over the weekend that I cannot wait for, and I know that you are in the same boat as well. If you're on YouTube, be sure that you like and subscribe. Comment down below on the video. I love seeing all your guys' comments and engagement. You've been really good, and keep it up, please. It's a lot of fun for me. If you're on any of the podcasting platforms, be sure you subscribe there if possible. Always turn the bell on, the notifications. That way you know every time an episode goes live. And we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. And hopefully we have a lot of fun starting next week if Indiana can pull off a big upset. So that's what's coming up on the show. Until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.